Good evening, everyone. I want to call to order the joint workshop of the Victoria City Council and the Victoria Planning Commission. Our workshops are informal and we'll dive right into that agenda. But first, I want to make a few comments about our agenda this evening. First and foremost, I want to welcome everybody to the workshop. Thank you so much for your interest in this project. We are delighted you are here to learn more. For those of you who are not familiar with our meeting, our workshops are an opportunity for the council to take a deep dive into topics before we take formal action on them. Like you, we are all eager to learn, and the council does not typically take public comment during workshops. We know that some of you will have questions about the vision, and it's our hope that this presentation and discussion this evening will address some of those questions and clear up any misconceptions about what this vision is or is not. Should this project move forward, there will be an opportunity to provide feedback and comment to the City Council as part of our public process. This evening, we invite you to write down any specific questions you have and turn those questions into the City Manager. Dana, will you raise your hand? There's Dana. She's our City Manager. We have forms where you can write your questions if we are not getting to them in the presentation. If we don't know the answers, we'll want to get those answers and make sure we're addressing those questions for future discussions. This is a journey that we're all on together and we are all learning. I want to stress there is no application in front of us and no specific land has been identified for this vision. It is an opportunity to hear about it and a first step in a very extensive process. So while we are not taking public comment at this time, we will try to address those written questions during the workshop this evening. We will also have a web portal where residents can leave comments, ask questions, and share ideas. We'll post where you can find that link at the end of the meeting, at the end of the discussion this evening. And ultimately, if after the presentation, your questions are not addressed and you still want to address the council, we've set aside a few minutes during our regular council meeting, which immediately follows this workshop for public comment. And you may request to speak during the open forum with our City Manager in between our meetings. Individuals will be allotted up to 2 minutes, and we ask that only new information or questions or concerns be brought up at the open forum. It's also important to note that the open forum is comment only, and the council will not take action or discuss. Before I turn this discussion over to Mr. Dahl, our Economic Development Authority, not authority, but Director. Guru, we'll call him a guru, I want to set the stage for us joining this evening or viewing from home. As noted in the agenda packet, this is a continuation of our small area plan study, which began in 2019. The council was a bit underwhelmed with the type of development study that was proposed, warehouses, mini storage, strip malls, and we directed staff to work on refining and bring back another vision for development that would meet the goals identified in the small area plan, but would be unique to Victoria. So with that, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here and thank you for your respectful listening during this meeting. I know it is very crowded in here. We don't want to turn anyone away. So with that, I'm going to turn this discussion over to Marty Dahl. Marty?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, we've got a kind of overview of this Victoria Acres vision to review this evening. As you mentioned, Mayor, this is really a first step, initial concept look at what a project like this could look like in Victoria. So just a little bit of background. So as you alluded to, the city's 2040 comprehensive plan does guide approximately 300 acres in the area of County Road 11, County Road 10, and the railroad tracks in the southeast corner of our ultimate growth area for commercial development. The study that you noted, Victoria Works study, was conducted in 2019. The purpose of that was to better understand the type of development that could be supported in this area to expand the tax base, and also, as you noted, staff was directed after that study to continue to work on refining that vision for the area to better reflect development unique to Victoria, and that would balance growth with some preservation of our important natural features. So, related to that, in 2021, the city was introduced to representatives from the USA Clay Target League. USA Clay Target is a nonprofit organization headquartered in Minnesota, and they operate the youth and high school shooting sport leagues in 38 states across the nation. So, over the past year, staff have worked in partnership with USA Clay Target, have held several meetings, had some meetings and discussions with the DNR to develop, again, just what a high-level concept of what something like this could be, a world-class outdoor recreation and shooting sport complex in Victoria. So that vision would contemplate not only, again, shooting sports competitions, but also community-wide outdoor recreation, opportunities for tourism, natural resource preservation, and the like. And related to that, and the reason this has come before you and has been an idea that the city is looking at is because of that potential for some higher quality and unique economic growth that a project like this could potentially spur in our commercial growth area that would meet or exceed those goals of the Victoria Works Plan. So John Nelson is the president of USA Clay Target. Unfortunately, he is unable to be here this evening. He is traveling outside of the country, but I felt it was important to provide a little bit of background on USA Clay Target as well. So USA Clay Target, the organization that the city has been discussing this potential project with, is the world's largest youth clay target shooting organization. And they, as I noted, they're based right here in Minnesota. The sport of clay target shooting is one of the fastest growing in Minnesota and in the country, with more than 47,000 student athletes and 10,000 coaches expected to participate in the league in 2022. The league itself is seeing 20% growth year over year, and the Minnesota High School Trap Shooting Championship is the largest shooting sport event in the world. It attracts more than 8,000 participants and 25,000 event goers over 9 days. Excuse me. In addition to being one of the fastest growing sports, it is arguably one of the safest high school sports, with not one injury having been reported since the league's inception in 2001, which it is the only high school sport that can boast that statistic. And then the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, as I mentioned, has identified a need for a facility like this in the region for several years. So the city is really exploring this opportunity, not only to satisfy this identified need for youth and outdoor enthusiasts, but also based on the potential for economic impact, of the economic impact a facility like this could have for the city, region, and state. So just in general, and we'll take a better look at this map as we continue, but in general, the facility, again, would be primarily geared toward clay target shooting, trap, skeet, sporting clays, which is the type of shooting sports that USA Clay Target undertakes. The city would be looking at potentially 350 to 500 acre footprint for a facility such as this. But as I mentioned, in addition to the shooting sports, the idea would also be to include archery facilities, indoor facilities, as well as several recreational type activities in the winter, snowshoeing, sledding, camping, other outdoor activities. And again, we'll look at this in a little more detail in just a minute. So there are obviously lots of questions that are related to a project or a proposal of this magnitude. So I was going to spend just a few minutes going over a few of those frequently asked questions. I would preface that this is not meant to be an exclusive or all exhaustive list of every question that's out there, or even purport to answer all of those questions, but just a few of the things that we know are being asked, and some of the information that we have available. So the first is, where will this be located? So the answer to that currently is there is no land or specific site that's been secured for this project. In general, the city is looking at properties around 350 to 500 acres in its south growth area, which would be south of the current city limits. So this map again identifies a possible area for this south of Marsh Lake Road, east of Highway 43, west of 11, and then north and west of that guided commercial property area that we will discuss in a little more detail as well. So again, there's no specific property identified, but this is generally the area that has been identified to see if there is a possibility there. Another question is the economic impact of this project. So the city has run just some very preliminary numbers and envision that this project could generate $165 million in property tax market value over 10 years. And as I noted, the potential to attract some higher quality commercial development to the city's future commercial growth corridor, hotels, entertainment, synergistic business and retail, restaurants, et cetera. Events are expected to drop to 25,000 people who will spend their time and money in Victoria. And then just another statistic, recreational shooters spent an estimated $16.9 billion each year on equipment and travel related to that sport. And in Minnesota alone, hunting, trapping, and shooting added almost $400 million to the state's GDP. So there is some economic opportunity with a facility like this. So related to that economic growth area, again, this facility would not be envisioned to take the place of the city's guided and identified future commercial growth area, but rather be a catalyst to try to attract a different type or a higher quality type of commercial use in this area, as I mentioned, to expand tax base, job creation, increase tourism, national and international recognition, et cetera. So another question, and a very valid one, concerned about noise from the site and what will be done to address noise mitigation. So if a project like this were to move forward, obviously it would be a high priority of both the city, of USA Clay Target, of everyone involved to explore the noise and try to mitigate any noise to the extent possible. So all available noise mitigation guides would be reviewed as part of this process, and those solutions would be evaluated and implemented as part of a planning and design, and again, if ultimately a facility like this were to go in. So noise would certainly be at the top of the list to work to address. How will this be paid for? So again, it is envisioned that this project would be paid for through public-private partnerships, primarily state and federal funding through key appropriations. So the idea would be that there would be state or federal funds that are dedicated to this type of recreational use, wildlife funds at the federal level that would be used to construct such a facility and not utilize local tax or property tax dollars. And then in addition to that, there would also be opportunities for private investment and partnerships, sponsorships, naming rights, fundraising strategies, et cetera. Who would manage the facility? So again, in this vision, it would be envisioned that this facility would be operated by USA Clay Target, which, as I mentioned, is a nonprofit organization, and who would host a number of local, regional, statewide, national, or even potentially international youth and high school tournaments. A proposed indoor event center on the grounds could be operated publicly or privately, depending on the market, and that would be envisioned to provide year-round event space for conferences and meetings, retreats and sports shows, education and training, weddings, restaurant and catering facilities, offices, etc. There'd also be envisioned to be a museum highlighting Carver County and Minnesota's outdoor heritage on this site, as well as permanent vendor buildings that would be dedicated for vendor space that would be available for purchase or lease by private entities, and then as well as the public amenity park and trail spaces that I mentioned earlier would likely be publicly owned and maintained. What safety measures will be in place? So this facility would be designed to provide optimal safety at the complex. That would include shot screenings and designated shooting lanes, berming, et cetera. It would certainly be envisioned to be built to the safest way possible. So in addition, USA Clay Target does require that all shooters that compete in their leagues complete safety courses. And as I mentioned, the Clay Target League is the only youth sport in Minnesota without a single recorded injury. What are the environmental impacts? So obviously an environmental assessment would be required as part of the planning or design for a facility like this. And then based on the results of that assessment, the complex would be required to meet all local, state, federal environmental standards or address any issues that may come out of that assessment. This complex would also preserve much larger natural areas of natural resources, including wetlands, tree stands, open space, et cetera, than would likely be preserved if the land would develop as residential homes in the future, which is what it is currently guided. What public amenities will be available? So Victoria Acres would seek to strengthen Minnesota's commitment to outdoor recreation and sports, as well as the community of Victoria. So as I mentioned, in addition to a world-class trap shooting facility, the complex would also be intended to include an event center, year-round recreational activities such as cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, parks and trail system, camping. And then again, just to see a high-level look again at what a facility like this could potentially look like over 350 acres. This is, again, just a high-level placement of the types of amenities you might see. We're envisioning incorporation of those public amenities and park amenities throughout the site. So on days when they are not being used for shooting sports competitions or trainings, there's ability to use nature trails, hiking trails. There would potentially be the opportunity for ATV trails, golf cart trails, again, campgrounds that could be utilized outside of events, and then as well as the trap and skeet fields for events, a possibility for Olympic bunker that would provide for Olympic training type facilities for this, as well as an indoor building for potential indoor archery or pistol ranges and training for different organizations and safety courses. So just before I conclude my presentation, staff did visit a couple of these facilities across the country last year. So one of those noted is the Sparta, Illinois Grand American. So just a few photos of kind of what this facility like this looks like in action. You can see the golf carts and ATVs are heavy use in these area, event center space. The upper right are the permanent vendor buildings. You can see the shooting areas that include open areas as well as trees and shrubbery, campgrounds, the bleacher facilities, museums, the restaurants on site, those types of things. And then similarly, the location in San Antonio, the National Sporting Clay Championship, very similar. You can see actually in this, you can see the shooting areas and proximity to some of the homes in the area, as well as those permanent vendor buildings and outdoor amenities. So with that, Mayor and Council, I think that concludes my formal presentation unless City Manager Hardy has anything she'd like to add.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Ms. Hardy, anything to add?
Not at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, Commission, thank you so much for your patience while we went through that presentation. Comments? If you have comments or questions, actually we're only discussing among the council and the commission this evening, so we are not taking public comment from the audience this evening.
When might you take comments from the
If
public?
we will be taking comment as this process moves on, there will be open time that we will invite the public in to provide comment.
Why can't you do it tonight?
We're all here now.
We're here now.
We are not taking public comment tonight, so we are answering
You
questions.
are already lobbying the
Excuse me,
legislature
please.
for funding
Please.
in March.
Please.
This is going down, this is halfway done, this whole project.
It isn't halfway, no.
Well, then you
This
can't
is-
lobby the legislature for our taxpayer money quite yet, can you?
We are not taking public comment this evening. I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you are here to
So why did you
provide.
say in the paper that you were gonna have a public meeting tonight?
Yeah.
This is an opportunity, it's a workshop, and it is an opportunity for the council and the commission to get their questions answered to see if we would like to pursue and move on with this project.
Answer to us.
Right? All right, council, commission, what, yes,
I just have a comment.
Mr.
Sparta,
Schwarty.
Illinois, I'm from the Chicago area, and I've never heard of Sparta, Illinois. So I looked it up. It's in the middle of nowhere. You know, this is much different being close to our town.
please, please.
Sparta, Illinois, there's a Walmart there. You're southeast of Belleville. So I'm just saying, it's not a populated area. So that would be my only comment. Should this be in a populated area? My second comment would be if the city of Victoria doesn't do this, could Carver or Chaska do it, put it in the same place, and then we wouldn't get any of the benefits from it? I don't know. So I'm just curious. Those are my two thoughts.
Good. Other thoughts, other questions? Ms. Moore?
I have a few. So, 165 million in property taxes over 10 years. I'd love to understand a little bit more how that's calculated. And the reason why is when I see this proposed project, I see lots of green space. And while I think it's important to, keep the green space and protect it, this is our commercial district. And so I just want to fully understand how that compares to a traditional commercial property development. So that's number one. Number two, 350 to 400 acres. That's a lot of land.
500, 350 to 500.
500. So can this concept be smaller? I think that's something that should be explored. RV parks, very concerned about that. I'd like to know more about the value that actually creates. Access, would love to know how that access works because we know that access is going to be somewhat limited along Engler. So that's a question. And then would this be an opportunity for Three Rivers to have a partnership? They're very involved in the West Metro, and that seems like a logical partnership. So those are my questions.
Great. Mr. Dahl, Ms. Hardy, I know we have engaged our financial advisors around that 165 million. Can you address that a little bit for the group?
Want me to do it? Yep. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner Moore, members of the council, members of the planning commission. So
Into the microphone, please.
we do have a financial advisor, and we engaged their services to help us understand what the potential property tax revenue could be from this type of development or with this vision. The $165 million in tax value does include the commercial area that Marty showed on the map earlier. So assuming a higher valued type of commercial, so something that's beyond the mini storage, beyond strip malls. And that was calculated based on square footages of the market, the market today.
A number of us back here really can't hear a lot. Could everyone kind of speak up a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So please, up here at the dais, grab a microphone, speak into the microphone so everybody at home can hear you, but also speak up for folks in the back. So thank you for that. All right, council, other questions, council commissioners? Other questions? Yes, Mr. Patterson.
Mine's kind of building off of Commissioner Moore, but I was mostly concerned about hours, lighting, timing of this. I'm not a shooter. I don't know how late that go. I don't know how late those go into the evening, or what the lighting and all the other things, including the RV park and all of that, the impact would have.
Yeah, that's a good
Anyway,
question.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Do we know what the season is? Like there's a basketball season and a hockey season. Do we know what the shooting season would be? Mr. Dahl?
Mayor, members of the council, and the commission, shooting sports would likely take place only in the warmer weather months. So I don't envision that there would be likely shooting sport competitions in the winter time. Also, typically, at least with USA Clay Target, they are not doing events into the evening. They're typically only during daylight hours.
And I'm assuming that we could, should this move forward, we could put some limits around how late we would accept those things and.
Mayor, members of the council, yes, I believe that would be something prudent to look into if this were to move forward.
All right, great. Mr. Abear.
I have a question on the shooting portion of it, is one aspect of it for me, and then there's the other commercial aspect of the hotel, restaurants, whatever that may be. Is it all in one, or is it phased in? Because I don't know. I just if it's just a shooting, that's one thing. Without commercial, if it's both together, that's another thing. In my opinion, I just want to understand. That's my first question, and my second question is, I'm not familiar with the type of guns and how loud they are. Did you get any flavor for that when you were in San Antonio and Chicago area, in terms of how loud it was and what was done for soundproofing, if you will?
Yeah, Commissioner Hebert, Mayor, members of the council and commission. Could you repeat your first question again, please?
It's just about the shooting complex, and then I'll call it the commercial
Yeah,
side of
okay,
that.
thank you. So it would be, I think it would be envisioned that they would be two separate developments, that the actual complex itself would be developed as a public-private partnership, likely with involvement from the DNR, state, federal funding, those types of things, and that the commercial area would be market-driven based on proximity and the number of people that would be attending this facility. So it changes the type of numbers and the market study on what something like that, what could take place in a property like that. So they would be two separate, with the commercial area being market driven. The second is, so most of these, well, all of the clay shooting is done with shotguns. So they're not your long range rifle or pistol. So they are at a lower decibel typically than some of those high distance rifles. They make noise. A shotgun makes noise. And it really depends a lot on weather and cloud cover and how it travels, but they certainly do. Most of it is buffering, berming. Distance helps mitigate that, at least in the facilities that we had seen.
Great. Councilmember Hebert, anything else?
Not this time.
All right, other questions? Yes.
When
Commissioner-
can we expect you to take public comment?
We will be.
I understand not at this meeting, but will it be a reasonable time in the future where we can make our thoughts known before this project goes too far?
So we don't have land for this yet. There has been no land secured for this, and we don't have a proposal in front of us. So as part of the regular process, there will be an opportunity to provide public comment.
Before you get the land, that's why we need to give
All
our
right.
comments now.
So I understand I understand.
You can't buy this land.
I understand what you're
We pay
saying.
taxes here.
So what we're proposing to do is we want to find out from the council and commission what questions they have. And at some point, what I'd like to do, if we can get these questions all gathered up and find the answers to them, at that point, I'd like to have a workshop where we take public comment. So I understand you don't want us to be buying property and spending money until your thoughts have been heard. I understand. I hear you and I understand.
Have you hired that lobbyist group yet?
We do not have a lobbyist on.
Your website indicated you hired, and you even gave the name of the lobbyist.
We have a lobbyist who is doing some volunteer work for us. So we have not hired a lobbyist, and I want to be clear about that. So, council, commission, but if I promise there will be an opportunity to provide comment. If you are not getting your questions answered tonight, please fill out a form, turn it into the city manager, and we'll try and get those things answered.
Why are you doing it? What's the game? You don't have the land, why do it?
The developers get rich
All right, council, commission, questions. Ms. Moore.
I got a few more questions.
Yes,
So,
Council-
for this
Commissioner Moore.
to make sense, I'd like to make sure that traffic study is completed. This commercial district is really, really important. So while this, you know, the little circle, the blue circle was a little bit more, call it west from the main intersection of Victoria Drive and Engler, we want to protect that main intersection because that is where employers are going to be most interested in due to access, just is most likely, and also visibility and if we get retailer. Okay. So traffic study is going to be very important. So I would like to request that a traffic study is completed for any site that's analyzed. So that's that. And we want to make sure that through that study, the commercial district is protected and it doesn't impact the ability to develop that intersection in future employers. So that's that. Job creation. One of the priorities of Victoria Works is job creation. We really need to fully understand job creation here. And so if it's a lot of land and it's not really creating many jobs, that's something we need to analyze.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Iverson.
Thank you. So I think probably the exposure for most here this evening is the article in the Chan Villager. And it lays out in general terms what is being thought about. And sequentially, we go through this, and it goes through many different steps. And I think I can speak for everyone here that both city and city council members and planning commissioners is that it's our best interest to serve the citizens of Victoria. We're all Victoria residents, okay, at the same time. So this, I look at it as a citizen, and I can say, quite a concept. I mean, it just truly is quite a concept, probably a unique concept, but it's a concept. And quote me on this, it'll either go here in Victoria or it could go somewhere else. But I think that it will happen. Now, will it be in the best interest of Victoria to do it? Incrementally, we'll find out. Step 1, step 2, step 3. But it's a very well defined process. There's nothing that is being said, this is going to happen, like it or not. It'll go through the process, and if it is, if it's a intelligent decision, if it's a viable decision, then it'll move forward. And I think, as Dana said, we're at the point where we will move this, and if it doesn't get to step 3, well, there you are. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Will
Thank you,
we
Chair
be able
Iverson.
to comment publicly? Can I have a date?
We don't have a date. We will not have a date because we are not far enough in the process. But what I will promise you is there will be plenty of notice given to the public on when they can comment.
And we don't want to write little questions that nobody else can see. We want to have public comments.
Understood.
Verbally.
Understood. Thank you. All right, I have a couple of questions. Marty, can we put that map back up again? What I want to understand the commercial development in proximity to the sporting complex, and kind of I'm interested in what some of those businesses were that were attracted to that area because of that.
Yeah, so Mayor, members of the council, members of the Planning Commission, I think, and maybe I'll go to this other slide here. So again, I think that the idea is that you will be able to attract more synergistic business type commercial growth with a facility like this. Things like hotels, if you've got a need for hotel space for people to stay, restaurant, related outdoor retail, outdoor type businesses. Again, that I think the idea would be that the private market would really drive the commercial aspect of this, but you likely get a bigger pool and a different type of commercial if you are nearby a facility such as this one. I think that's the idea behind it.
Okay. Marty, can I ask a question? It seemed like in the two examples that I didn't see a hotel, I didn't see any big restaurant, I didn't see anything that I would consider commercial. I saw only things to support the clay shooting. So is there something that we're missing in the photos that maybe could help us to understand how this could happen here and be more of commercial driven?
Yeah, Commissioner Murray, Mayor, members of the commission and council, what we were seeing photos of are really just the complex itself, right? I think what we're trying to identify is that the complex would be separate from this commercial area. Commissioner Schwarting is right, is that the facility in Sparta is really kind of set out by itself. There's nothing there. People are driving. Yeah, St. Louis, from St. Louis to attend those events. They're staying in St. Louis. They're staying in those areas around it.
So there's no hotel at Sparta?
Not right on that site, no.
What about San Antonio?
And in San Antonio, again, it is not within the complex, but adjacent. San Antonio is much more in proximity to a more developed area, so it would be similar to the concept that we're talking about here, where you have a facility in close proximity, driving for sure, potentially walking distance from some of these areas.
I think it'd be interesting to look at the San Antonio community or and actually on a Google Earth and to see the proximity of the commercial, because I think we're talking about 300 acres, and I've been in the hotel business. I have a background in hotels, and I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing this driven here, that a hotel would want to actually be here for only temperate season, for only, and it seemed like everybody was driving RVs. That's just what I got from the pictures, but that's just what I'm looking at. And then the restaurants, I kind of asked the same questions, so I'd wonder about that. Those would be my top questions. And then I'm still trying to understand who would actually own this. So what if it doesn't work out? Like, we donate 500 acres and then it doesn't fly. Like, what goes there? What happens? Because I was just listening to the Southwest Rail debacle on the news, and I'm like, I don't want to be a part of something like that. If that's,
you pay for it in the end when it fails.
Well, that's kind of like, I'm not really very familiar, so it's hard for me to understand the commercial side of it, the 165 million. I guess for me, what I look at is, we definitely have a need for homes and people are wanting to live in our community. You take the 300, 500 acres, you have, how many homes could that develop at 350,000? What would be the tax base from that? And at the same time, we have a lot of homes. Victoria is very driven with residential, and we do need commercial, but I think we have to really be mindful of what that commercial is and how that serves our residents.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Mr. Dahl, okay, thank you, Julie. Can you speak a little bit to kind of the market study and maybe why they think Victoria is a good spot, why USA Clay Target thinks Victoria is a good spot for this?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council and commission. So there was a USA Clay Target did do a market study of sporting shooters in the area. That study shows that there are 400,000 sporting shooting individuals within a 60-minute driving area of Victoria, and 500,000 hunters, what would be classified as hunters. So just within that 60-minute driving radius. So that doesn't include some of the outstate, Mankato's, those types of communities. So it is, I think they're attracted by the, again, there's a hole in the metropolitan region for a facility like this, because there's a large number of enthusiasts and hunters in that 60-minute radius.
My understanding is there is a similar facility in Alexandria.
Prior Lake has.
Grand Rapids and LeSueur and Mankato and Itasca.
Can you-
all over.
There's a community.
Are the,
19 miles.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council and commission, nothing to this size and caliber, right? The Alexandria facility, which is currently the home of the USA Clay Target State Tournament, it's a 9-day tournament, not because they want it to be 9 days, but just because they lack the space and the facilities to be able to have their tournament in a period of time that they're looking to do. That area is also sounds like it is downsizing. They own some property on the outskirts that has recently been sold and has no interest. Some of the other public-private clubs, again, are just not to the level that you'd be able to host the type of events that a facility like this or of this size would host.
Thank you. Council, commission, other questions?
I have some questions.
Councilmember Roberts.
In San Antonio, obviously the pictures showed that there's residential area close. Did you talk to the people there about how the residents have taken that, what they've done additional to trees, berming that you've mentioned? If there's other things that help with this noise?
Yeah, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor, members of the council and commission, we talked to a few folks at the facility, and we did ask that question specifically. Now, granted, we talked to a single individual there about this that was involved in the operations, but they said that noise complaints from them are very minimal. As far as the noise that's generated or the complaints from the nearby residential. So again, take that with a grain of salt. It was one individual that we spoke to there. I do think that if this is something that should be looked to move forward further, I think the San Antonio facility is a good example, and where more conversation and research should be focused, because again, it's a similar type of proximity to an existing residential area and neighborhood. So I think those are certainly questions that we'd want to focus on and dig into further if this were to be something we'd want to continue looking at.
Marty, I agree with that. I think also it'd be important to understand, was the commercial there first and the shooting facility came after? Because it looks like the commercial is located in San Antonio on the major thoroughfares, which probably would have driven the commercial anyway. So I just would like to know the timing of which came first. I think that would tell us a little bit of what we might expect.
Terrific.
If you Google noise, you'll see a TV show out of Cleveland talking about residents that are near this country club where people are complaining about the noise of the shots, veterans with PSD, and they're a mile and a half away. And the city initially gave them a permit to do it, and then they reneged on the permit, and the country club sued and won. So they're continuing despite complaints from the neighbors. So I think, I moved to Victoria for peace and tranquility. I didn't move here to hear gunshots. So I think that's really my biggest issue. I think it's a well thought out plan. I appreciate the Clay Target Association. You look at their website, and it looks like some good stuff going on. I just don't know if we're the right place for them.
All right.
What's the Google address?
Thank you, Mr. Shorting.
Noise.
Well, just
Council.
Google loud shots and you'll find it.
Council, commission, other questions?
Sorry, can I finish since I got?
Oh, yeah. Councilmember
So,
Roberts.
there's been comments about not making sure we don't buy land, with taxpayer money. We're talking again about federal and state grants and money coming in along with private money, correct? This will not be Victoria residents' money paying for the land, correct?
Yeah, Councilmember Roberts, again, that would be a decision of the council, but that is not the direction that that staff has been working based on, that it would not be local taxpayer money.
We pay state and federal taxes too. So it ends up being our money.
Councilmember.
Also, I would just say with the commercial aspect, I have coworkers that their kids do the trap shooting. It brings in tons of money. I mean, if honestly, if you build it, they will come, right? There's going to be a hotel there. There's going to be RV parking. The restaurants are going to come. This is not just a weekend thing. This is a year-long thing. And yes, we've talked about during, it's generally during warm months, but this is going to have amenities for year-round stuff, right? Snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, sledding. This is going to be an amenity for the entire community, not just out-of-towners that are coming in for shooting tournaments. Yes, there's going to be that, but I would like to venture after COVID, our businesses, our restaurants, would like to see thousands of people come in and spend money at our restaurants. I don't know. You ask any of the restaurant owners. I'm sure they love to have business owners come in. I think it's a great thing for Victoria.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Councilmember Roberts. Councilmember,
This isn't yours.
Councilmember Black, please.
Okay, so I think that we do need to do a deeper dive into this to find out exactly. Microphone, please. Sorry. I do think we need to do a deeper dive into this, and I do want to look at more of the facilities that are doing this so that we can understand exactly what this does entail. I did do some research as well, and because the main thing that people seem to be concerned with was the noise, which they have expressed to me that the biggest thing was the noise with the gunshots and how it upset their dogs and that kind of thing. So I did some research, and a shotgun, the noise is 155 decibels, and you can hear that a mile to 2 miles away.
4 miles.
Well, according to the records.
Please, Councilmember Black, continue. Please, Councilmember Black, please continue.
Okay, so here's the deal, though. With the clay shooting, they use special ammo that the decibels are 81, not 155. So that sound travels 100 feet, and when I looked up, the largest, the furthest would be 200 feet. It's the same as an air gun, the same kind of noise as an air gun. When I looked up the noise of pickleball, which no one had a complaint about with that, that's 70 decibels. So I just want I want you to take into consideration that we need to see what the noise is really going to be. We can't, if it's going to be, where you're going to hear it a mile or two away, then absolutely not. I wouldn't think so.
Decibels double every 10.
Well, actually, it said it dropped 6 every 10. So I don't know.
All right, well, we know we're going to have to get some understanding about what the noise impact of this is going to be. Councilmember Black, anything else?
Not right now.
All right. Yeah, Councilmember Gunderson, please.
Marty, so let's take the amenities out of this project. How many similar developments like this are out there? I mean, how many times shooting football, major metropolitan complex with a mall, how many of these projects come around once every year or how often do we see projects that could impact a tax base, commercial tax base?
Councilmember Gunderson, Mayor, members of the council and commission, not having looked into that deeply, I can't say for certain, but just anecdotally, it seems rare. The Blaine National Sports Center being one, stadium projects in larger metropolitan areas would probably be comparable to something like this, but without having looked into that, I don't know for sure.
And it's fair to say, obviously, with the amenities, there's a passionate argument on both sides. But if we dissociate the amenities, these projects you just said, anecdotally, they're rare. They don't come along very often. What other potential do we have? Because going back to the survey that the city did back in, was it 2017 or 2019?
3 years ago.
Was it 3 years ago?
3 years ago. Yeah.
So Victoria residents answered that they did not want to be a big box store community. They didn't want commercial, rectangles of office spaces. Since the pandemic, people have come home to work and aren't going back as fast as they said they were. So we're seeing more people work at home. So putting in an office park or something where we're going to try to put people in an office doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. It wouldn't drive or help our tax base. So looking at things that are a little bit outside the box seem to be to make more sense. And I just want to make sure, again, like everybody, that we're doing right by the taxpayers, which is entertaining all opportunities to decrease the residential property tax value that we're all paying, which sits at between taxes and fees at 98% on residential. Is that roughly fair to say? So we're at 98%. No community in the country will survive at 98% in the long run. We need to be able to bring people in. So rare opportunities, I think we need to take a chance to do the due diligence, vet them, and see where it takes us. We've sat on 13 and a half acres for almost 20 years, and we've wanted to sell it to one thing, and we haven't done it. We're starting to maybe parse out that land a little bit to make it a smaller bite to chew, to get that tax base down. We've done some things here that have helped, or will hopefully help, hopefully, the one across the street will help our tax base and from a residential standpoint. Being one of three people to support publicly that building at the public hearing, I know the benefit to what it's going to do to our budget and what it's going to do when it's ready to our property taxes, which is lower them. So taking the opportunity, taking our time, there's plenty of space here, I think, to have the conversation and to be able to have it civilly so that we can understand where we're at. If you would like to make public comment, you can go on the website and you can submit your comments right now, and they'll come through to council. You can send any of the 5 of us, any of the 9 of us. How many are up here? How many we got? 12? You can send any of the 12 of us emails. We'll all see them. You can send them to us all in one big shot. It's council@Victoria, if you want. We read everything.
I want everyone to hear the comments.
I understand, and they're publicly ready. Anybody wants them, we'll be happy to put them out publicly. I'm not afraid of you. If somebody sends me an email, you want to see my computer, come take it. You paid for it. You can come take a look at it. You can see what I'm being sent. I'm happy to show anybody that.
Why are you afraid of a public comment group?
We are not afraid of a public comment group, but it is not tonight. It's not the time. There is a proper time. There is a proper time and place to take the public comment, and tonight is for council and commission discussion and questions. And once we get those, we want to get our questions answered, and we want to make the decision about whether we're moving forward. So there will be a time. We are not afraid of public comment. We encourage it. We want it. We want to know what our residents think. But tonight, I'm sorry, it's not the night. All right, Councilmember Gunderson, please.
Thank you. So now bringing the amenities back into it and looking at businesses that are in Minnesota and that are in surrounding states, there are potential partners. And I would think off the top of my head, companies like Matthew Bose and St. Croix Rod and Federal and Shields and a couple of these other outdoor related companies, Clamshell, are all located in or around Minnesota and headquartered either in Wisconsin or on the border in North Dakota. That's a lot of economic development for a community in a way that we want to develop it based on the survey that we answered back in 2019. So those are opportunities for us, right? I mean, I would say that those are potentials. That's just me thinking off the top of my head, companies that I know. So vetting it out, I think there's great potential. And if the goal is to get some of the relief off our property taxes for residents, and increase and broaden the base to a commercial level, I think we should continue the conversation and look for opportunities to bring in projects like this. You know, because in the long run, that's what we're going to need to do if we're actually going to be serious about how much property taxes residents are paying versus what kind of a commercial base we have. And we don't have that right now. We have residential property taxes, and that's not to knock Cabin Fever or any of our other, the borough or any of our other businesses that are down here. They do a great job of bringing people in, but they're a very small percentage of what helps us right now. And then, again, that's not to knock them. It's just based on the way our budget is, very small portion of it. We need opportunities like this to have the conversation, to bring people in a very open way. And we are. And right now we are. I know right now sometimes with the setup, with a workshop, for us to ask questions as a council, to do it in a public way gets a little bit confusing because it's not a council meeting and it's not something we're going to vote on. It's to help us get an understanding of what it is. And that's how you want us to be. And that's what you've all asked us to be. So, Marty, I kind of got on a high horse, but here's, so I just want to make sure that we're talking about the project in a way that highlights concerns from the residents, but also brings in the questions that we have on a larger scale. And if there aren't that many projects like this, in terms of just the scope and size, to be able to make an impact, a lasting impact on our budget, it's something that we should continue to do.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Gunderson. All right, our time is coming to an end here, so any last comments from commissioners or council members regarding this? Commissioner Moore.
It's a question in regards to zoning. So it's currently guided commercial. Would this use fall within that zoning?
Commissioner Moore, Mayor, members of the Commission and Council. So again, I think we need to talk about, we're talking about two separate areas, right? We've got our commercial area, South Growth area, that would continue to be commercial, is guided for commercial. The area that is potentially identified in that big purple blob is guided for residential. So it would be a potential change from residential to either a new zoning district or likely a new zoning district if something like this were to move forward.
So it'd be a bunch more houses.
Well, and many more approvals that in phases you have to go through. I mean, for that rezoning to be approved, it's got to check a lot of boxes. So
correct.
Mayor,
correct.
If I may, just obviously a lot of interest tonight about process and about public comment, and if I can just follow off the comment by the commissioner and Community Development Director Dahl will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I heard tonight is first of all, what I can't say is the number of times that you're going to be required to allow public comment. It's obviously going to be multiple times if this were to move forward. I think that's yet to be decided if this moves forward or not, but if it moved forward, there have to be multiple opportunities. I guess the minimum number of opportunities that I'm identifying as I sit here and listen tonight is, I believe Director Dahl said that you would have to do an environmental impact study of some kind. As part of that, to the commissioner's question, a traffic study would be required as part of that. And any such process requires multiple opportunities for public comment. One. Two, to the commissioner's point about rezoning, as land comes into the city goes through an initial zoning based on guiding and then would have to do some potentially re-guiding or rezoning. I don't know yet because we don't have a proposal, but any of those zoning decisions are required, again, to go through public hearings. So that's another opportunity for public comment. And then lastly, I don't know this as a matter of fact, but I think I can tease it out of what I've seen here tonight. To acquire land at this level of magnitude, there would be some land subdivisions required. There'd have to be some land divided to make to gather up the land necessary to do this, and that too is required to go through public hearing processes. So, at a minimum, there are three processes, three approvals here if this were to move forward, all of which would require independently public hearings and public input processes. So, I don't know that you will ever have a proposal on this that comes forward. You may elect to have additional public input beyond what I've just described, but at a very minimum, there are at least 3 opportunities, probably each of which having multiple public hearing requirements.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vos. That's our Attorney Vos providing that comment. Thank you so much for that. So on the screen, you'll see the web address to go to find out more information about Victoria Acres. There's also a place to leave comment. All those comments do get to both the council members and the planning commission members. We will direct staff with the approval, with the agreement of the city council, to get the answers to the questions that we've posed here this evening. Am I hearing agreement on that? And then bring those back at a future date. And then we will move on with the process from there. All right, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify